See, before starting the class, Jyotish has posted some questions here, right? Let me try to answer them. He is asking questions regarding interest calculations. Is the same calculation process applicable for bonds and debentures issued or invested by the company? So the procedure is same. The procedure is same in the case of calculation of interest for bonds and debentures issued by the company. But invested by the company, it's a different issue. Because there we receive, when the company invested in the bonds, right, we receive the interest, right? In that case, right, automatic assignment is a little bit different. That means there we have to use the item interest calculation process. Right? So investing in the bonds, if you have invested in the bonds or debentures of other companies, they are just equal to your debtors, right? So you have to receive the interest from them. In that case, we use the item interest calculation. So item interest calculation, I have not yet cleared. I have not yet covered, right? So, but in the case of bonds and debentures issued by the company, procedure is same. Okay, Jyotish, this is clear.
Yeah, I got it, sir. So maybe in near time you will cover item interest when you have time.
Item
right?
interest calculation will cover later.
Okay,
Then
cool.
explain the sequential number. See, in the time-dependent terms, we have the sequential number. So what is the sequential number? He is asking to explain the sequential number. Here, we have defined two terms. In our interest calculations, we have defined two terms because the interest is calculated in the term loan. But in the case of working capital loan, suppose you have taken one working capital loan. In that case, the working capital loan is calculated, the interest on working capital is calculated day-wise balances. Means every day the system will calculate interest on the debit balance and credit balance of the term loan. Right? In that case, 360 terms, debit terms, and 366 terms for credit terms. That is the sequential number meaning. So every day we have to define one term. So for debit interest calculation, right, 366 terms. For credit interest calculation, 366 terms. So they are represented by the sequential number. Clear? Because
sir, yeah, I was getting errors, sir. When I was doing calculation, I don't know where is the mistake. Maybe
what is the error you are getting?
9843 is the code, sir. Maybe you can check that.
No. What is the error you are getting?
No, when we run the interest calculation, we'll get that interest amount calculated, right? Then only we'll move to the next screen, right? For entering the posting line, right?
You are calculating instead of .52.
I'm getting the message. Posting is, the batch session is created, but that interest calculation message is not displayed on the screen.
So batch input session is created, but you are not able to see the interest, right?
Yes, correct. The interest calculated is not visible on the screen, and that should be posted on the respective account, right? The GL account, that is interest account and term loan. Earlier I got it, but sometimes this is a new company code. There's an error I got.
I will check after the class, right? Where you have gone wrong, I will check after the class.
I'll just ping the code later.
Tell me, Arha, what's your doubt?
Lakshman, I do have the same issue. When I find it out, the issue with the value date was wrong. But I would like to know if I am missing 2 months of interest missing. So how we will show in our real-time situation, or either we can rectify this interest calculation in a real-time scenario in the
Here, if you miss the calculation of interest for any month, right?
No, it's showing the batch is running. It's showing everything, but interest is not deducted from the main amount.
Oh,
When I-
interest is not interest is calculated, but it is not posted.
Yeah, but when I got to know where I did mistake, I got to know it was the value date was missing, not properly. So
Uh-huh.
how we show these 2 months in real time scenario in the company?
Yeah.
How company
So
can
in
adjust?
that case, right, you change the value date in FB0 to transaction code in the respective document numbers, right? Then
Yes.
when the interest is wrongly calculated, there is no other go. You post the interest manually for the difference.
How we can do it, because I do not have any
In
background of.
FB02, in FB02, as simple as that. Suppose
Okay.
the interest to be posted is 1,000 rupees, right?
Mhm,
But the system has calculated interest 500 rupees only.
mhm.
Okay. Then in that case, we post the entry manually in F-02, debit interest account, credit term loan account. That is only the way.
Okay, so there is no other way we can cancel or we can do something. So
no.
if in real time, if we do the silly mistake, then it's a big problem, right?
Yes, obviously.
So
That's
is there
why-
any way we can present a template or any document so we can verify and roughly we can calculate and then we can post it? Is there any
No.
different?
No, before, see here, there is one concept, transportation, right? So
Mhm.
before sending the configuration, the client system, right? We do the testing also, right? Only when the testing is met, then only we send the configuration to the client server, right? That is called transportation. Transportation we cover later.
Okay, thank you. And we also missed the recurring document with the different date that I wasn't able to.
It seems that there is an issue in the system, right? That's why it is not posting for the remaining dates. It is posting only for the first date, right? So it seems that there is a small mistake in the system, right? So it's not your configuration mistake. The other day also somebody called me and saying that he has created the recurring schedule with the 3 dates. So when he executes the recurring schedule, the system is posting the interest for the first date. For the remaining 2 dates, it's not posting, right? It seems that there is a mistake there. But the procedure is same. You have to give the date from date and to date, and you
Yeah.
create a batch input session, and we execute the batch input session.
So would you please show us one time so we can
That's
follow
what
that
I'm
thing?
saying, madam. There is a mistake in the system, right? That's why it is posting only for the first day, first date.
Actually, but from my side, I wasn't sure I'm doing right or not. That's my concern is.
No. You are doing right. You are doing right. Don't worry.
All right, thank you.
So there's one more doubt in that also. The third one, that is the last one.
I'm coming, sir.
Oh, okay, no problem.
Wait, huh? Yeah. So will the system calculate interest even if any months are skipped? Yes. If any month is also skipped, right, the system calculates the interest. It is not as in the case of recurring document. In the recurring document, if you skip any month, right, the system will not post the document for the next month. But that is not the case in the case of interest, right? Suppose even if you give the wrong date, right, the system will calculate interest for the next interval only. Suppose on our term loan, we have calculated interest up to 31st July, right? Now you have to calculate interest for the month of September. And for the month of September, you did not calculate interest and you have forgotten. Then you have given that next in October, you are calculating interest, right? In that case, even though you give the October date, the system will calculate interest for September only. That is the
Okay, so
answer
not
to
like a
your
recurring document, it will post.
Yes. In the case of recurring document, it will not create the batch input session. You cannot skip an interval, right? As such, in the case of recurring document. But here in the interest calculation also, you cannot skip. Even if you skip, the system calculates the interest for skipped interval. Next
Got
time
it.
when you are calculating interest.
Got it. Got it.
Then among 10 term loans, we are on track paying installments on 7th means 7th of every month, right?
No, on 7, I mean,
Okay,
out of
okay.
10.
Seven
out of
loans. Okay. Among 10 term loans, we are on track paying installments on 7 and defaulted for remaining 3 loans. Okay. We are now running batch for 30th July, and we earlier last calculated and defaulted loans till April and skipped for May and June. We can assume that we did not have on May and June. So in that case, right, when you are calculating interest for the remaining months, first the system will calculate interest for May and June also. Next time. That's what I told you just now, right?
Yes, correct, sir. Okay. Thank you.
Now, today we have to start accounts payable, but before starting accounts payable, in basic settings, we have defined the account groups, right? So there I did not explain you something at that time. Now you can understand. Now only you can understand the functions of the account groups. The following are the functions of GL account groups. Number one, to control the number to be allotted to the general ledger master record created under the respective group. Means here, at the time of creating every GL account, what we are doing, we are identifying the account group under which the GL account is to be created. And from that number range, we are selecting one number. That number we are giving to master record. That is the meaning of the first function. We control the number to be allotted to the general ledger master record created under the respective group. Then, to control the display of fields to be maintained in the general ledger master records created under the respective group. That is, whether every field is required or optional or suppressed or displayed. What does it mean? This is very, very important function from the real-time point of view also. Let us go to cash account. 2,100,000. Company code SSKH. Go to menu GL account, change. See, in the GL account master record, right, we have the two segments. Number one, chart of account segment. Number two, company code segment, right? So in the chart of account segment, you maintain almost all the data. You cannot skip any data. Compulsory, you have to maintain almost all the data in the chart of account segment. But in the control data segment, I mean, in the company code segment, right? You did not maintain all the fields. You maintained only account currency, only balances in local currency. Then you have selected line item display and you have maintained sorting. But you did not maintain other fields. Why? Assuming that the other fields are not required for the cash account. So we require only 4 fields in the company code segment for the cash account, right? Now, when I don't require these fields, and one more thing is, the other fields are not required not only in cash account, in all the GL accounts, which are created in the account group, current assets, loans, and advances. So when I don't require these fields, I don't want to see them in the master record itself. Because if you want to see the fields what you have maintained, you have to scroll up and scroll down. So here, again, I'm repeating, all the fields, all the other fields, which you did not maintain the cash account, are also not required for all the GL accounts, which are created under this account group, current assets, loans, and advances. So when I don't require these fields, right, I don't want to see them in the master record itself. In that case, we can suppress them at the account group level. Go back to notes, please. Go back to notes, please. Put heading, field status. Field status. There are two types of field status. There are two types of field status. In SAP. Number one, field status at the time of document entry. Field status at the time of document entry. It is controlled by field status variant field status variant through field status groups. See, document entry means posting of transactions. See, at the time of posting the transactions, right, if you remember, business area and text are becoming mandatory fields for every GL account. How? We have selected business area and text as required entries in the field status group G001. Then that field status group G001 was assigned in every GL account master record. That's why at the time of debiting or creating the GL account, these two fields are becoming mandatory fields. Other fields were suppressed. So you are not able to see those fields. That's how the field status for document entry is controlled by field status variant through field status groups. Next, number two. Field status for master records. Field status for master records. It is controlled by account groups. That is, the field status for GL master records. I'm sorry. The field status for GL master records is controlled by GL account groups. The field status for GL master records is controlled by GL account groups, comma, the field status for vendor master records. The field status for vendor master records is controlled by vendor account groups. The field status for vendor master records is controlled by vendor account groups, comma. The field status for customer master records is controlled by customer account groups, comma. The field status for customer master records is controlled by customer account groups, comma. The field status for asset master records is controlled by asset classes, through screen load rules. through screen load rules. Now, how the field status for the vendor master records, customer master records, and asset master records is controlled by respective groups. That we will see in the respective modules. But at this point of time, we have to understand how the field status for GL master records is controlled by GL account groups. Next heading. Next put heading. Field status for GL master records. Field status for GL master records. It is controlled by GL account groups. For example, we do not require, for example, we did not require the following fields. We do not require the following fields in all the GL accounts. In all the GL accounts created under the account group, current assets, loans and advances. Current assets, loans and advances. Number one, exchange rate difference key. Number one, exchange rate difference key. Number two, tax category. Number three, reconciliation account for account type. Reconciliation account for account type. Number four, inflation key. Number four, inflation key. In that case, next paragraph. In that case, we can suppress them. We can suppress them at the account group level. In that case, we can suppress them at the account group level. Just I'm giving you an example, business case, nothing else. So in all the GL account master records, which we create under this account group, current assets, loans, and advances, I don't require this field, tax category, reconciliation account for account type, then inflation key. So now I don't require these fields, right? I don't want to see these fields in the master records itself. In that case, we can suppress them at the account group level. Continue. Procedure. Go to the transaction code OBD4. Go to the transaction code OBD4. Within brackets, define GL account groups. Define GL account groups. Click on position. Chart of accounts, SSKH. Click on enter. Select the account group. Select the account group. Current assets, loans and advances. Select the account group, current assets, loans and advances. So current assets, loans and advances group, you select this. Click on field status tab. Click on field status tab. Look at the screen. This is the field status. Now, double click on account control. Double click on account control. Look at the scheme. So each group, subgroup, these are the subgroups in the field status group. So account control contains some fields. Account management controls some fields. Document entry controls some fields. Here, see, this is account control in the company code, right? Then account management in the company. So we don't require the fields under account control in the company code, right? So double click on account control. Suppose if you don't want to see any of these other fields under account management, then you have to double click on account management, nothing else. So double click on account control. Double click on account control. Now you see for all these fields, right? System default selection is optional entry. That's why, right? When you are creating the GL account master record under this group, right? The system is displaying all these fields. Now, I don't require exchange rate difference key, right? So exchange rate difference key is optional entry, right? Now you select as suppressed entry. Don't write, I will tell you. Then I don't require tax category, select suppressed. I don't require reconciliation account, suppress. Then I don't require inflation key, suppress. Now click on save. Right now. Select the suppressed status. Select the suppressed status. For all the above fields. Select the suppressed status for all the above fields. Click on save. Now, I am going to create one more GL account, cash at bank account, under the current assets, loans and advances. See what happens. So I'm creating 2,01,101 cash at bank, right? GL account is 2,01,101. Company code SSKH. Then go to menu GL account create. Account group is current assets, balanced account, short text bank account. Go to control data tab. See, exchange difference key field is not there. Tax category field is not there. Reconciliation account for account type is not there. And inflation key is not there. That's how we can control the fields to be maintained in the GL master records through GL account groups. This is the very, very important function of GL account groups. That's what I told you. If you go back and see the notes, based on the nature of the GL accounts, we group them together. So let us go back and bring back the status as it is. Don't change the system default settings anytime, anywhere. So again, I'm selecting optional entry. Now, I'm creating the same bank account again. Go to control data tab. See, you can see the exchange difference key now, tax category, then inflation key, then reconciliation account for account type. This is very, very important from the entry point of view also, and real-time point of view also. Now, accounts payable. And we have left one topic, group currency. The group currency, I will explain you after the account receivable topic. See, this component is used to process the business transactions related to suppliers, vendors, or creditors. So all are same. Suppliers, vendors, creditors, all are same. Here, during the management of the business, right, we purchase the raw materials, we purchase the stores and spares, we purchase the packing materials, right? And sometimes, not sometimes, we purchase the fixed assets also, which are required for running your business. All these parties or business organizations are called vendors or suppliers. So in order to process the business transactions relating to the suppliers, we use the accounts payable component. So what are the business transactions relating to suppliers? Purchase invoices. How to process purchase invoices? Then we make the payments to vendors. After purchasing the materials, stores and spares, fixed assets, etc., we have to make the payments to them as per the payment terms given by them. So when we make the payments to vendors, we can make the full payments and part payments also, right? So how to process the full payments and part payments to vendors? Then sometimes, right, you pay advances to vendors. So how to process advances to vendors? Then payments through automatic payment program. Very, 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 very important. Payments through automatic payment program. How to make the payments to vendors using automatic payment program. Then sometimes if the goods are not up to the quality standards purchased by us, we have the right to return them. In that case, how to post the purchase returns. So when you return the goods to vendors, they are called purchase returns. So how to process the purchase returns? Then TDS, tax deducted at source. In India, according to Indian Income Tax Act 1961 and Section 194C, right? And also Section 194D, right? Like that, different sections are there which are dealing with tax deducted at source. According to those sections, we have to, as a business organization, we have to reduce some tax from the some respective type of vendors, from particular type of vendors, and these TDS is to be deposited to government treasuries. So how to process the TDS, how to enable the system to calculate TDS, etc., etc. So these are all the business transactions, right, which are relating to accounts payable. So how to process these business transactions and what is the configuration we need to develop to process these business transactions. Then see TDS wherever necessary and payments to vendors through banks, etc. For this purpose, we have to maintain the master record for every vendor with reference to the company code. Every vendor master record is identified with the number, and the vendor master record number is controlled by vendor account groups. Just similar to GL master record is controlled by GL master record number is controlled by GL account group. Here also, in the accounts payable, the vendor master record is controlled by vendor account groups. From the vendor account group only, the system takes the number. So, what is vendor account group? Based on the similarities in the master data maintenance requirements, all the vendors are grouped together, which are called vendor account groups. The master record for the vendor individual vendors are created under the respective vendor account group. As every vendor account is identified with the number, we create and assign the number ranges for every vendor account group. At the time of creating the vendor account, the user enters the account group under which account is to be created. Then the system will take the number from the number range of that vendor account group and assigns it to the master record. Means what? See, based on the similarities in the master data maintenance requirements, all the vendors are grouped together, which are called vendor account groups. Say, for example, there are some suppliers from whom we are purchasing raw materials. And these are called vendors for raw materials. Now, in these vendors for raw materials, right, on some, we have to pay input tax. Forget about the GST now for the time being, right? Before the introduction of GST, we have the state taxes and CST, excise duties, etc., right? So, in the case of vendors from whom we are purchasing raw materials, we have to pay input taxes. So, in every vendor master record, from whom we are purchasing the raw materials, we have to maintain the input tax information. Input taxes means taxes which are paid on purchases. They are called input taxes. So we have to maintain input tax information. Then there are some vendors or suppliers or the organizations from whom we are purchasing services. For example, your statutory auditors, internal auditors, solicitors, shares underwriters, management consultants, legal advisors, income tax advisors, right? Like that, there are different organizations. We purchase the services. So in the case of vendors for services, right, there is no input tax, but you have to pay service tax. So in the case of vendors from whom we are purchasing services, we have to maintain the purchase tax information, service tax information. But in the case of vendors from whom we are purchasing raw materials, we have to maintain input tax information. Right? This is called similarities in the master data maintenance requirements. And sometimes we may group them together like domestic vendors and foreign vendors. So like that, based on the similarities in the master data maintenance requirements and also on the requirements, how you have to classify your vendors in the balance sheet. So based on these two parameters, we group the vendors together. Say, for example, we can group local vendors and foreign vendors. Otherwise, you can create the group like vendors for raw materials, vendors for stores and spares, vendors for expenses, legal vendors. Legal vendors means these are the different governmental agencies or the governmental authorities to whom you have to pay different taxes, different types of taxes, like income tax authorities, GST authorities, professional tax authorities, right? Then ESI, PF authorities. Like that, these are the different vendors to whom you have to pay different types of taxes and different types of contributions. They are called legal vendors. Similarly, one-time vendors. One-time vendors means the vendors with whom you deal very now and then, like suppliers of plant and machineries. So you don't go on purchasing the plant and machineries every day, very frequently. Suppliers of four-wheelers, suppliers of furniture. So these are all the vendors from whom or with whom we deal very just now and then, right? This type of vendors are called one-time vendors. So you can create only two account groups. We can create only two account groups, local vendors and foreign vendors. Otherwise, you can create 5 vendor account groups. You don't have any foreign vendors at all. Within the country only, you are procuring all your services, materials, etc. In that case, vendors for raw materials, vendors for stores and spares, vendors for expenses, legal vendors, one-time vendors. Remember, these are not compulsory and mandatory. Right? Then otherwise, local vendors for raw materials, local vendors for stores and spares, local vendors for expenses, local legal vendors, local one-time vendors, and foreign vendors for raw materials, foreign vendors for stores and spares, foreign vendors for expenses, foreign legal vendors, foreign one-time vendors. Like that, we can create any number of vendor account groups. There isn't any limit and there isn't any minimum also. But one group should be there. Say, for example, right, we are creating these vendor groups. We are creating these vendor account groups. Then, for every vendor account group, we create a number range. See, for example, here, this is called number range numbers, right? And these are called number range intervals. Here, first, for the number range number 01, right? We assign the number in interval 1 lakh to 2,99,999, for example. Then this 01 will be assigned to vendors for raw materials. Similarly, for the number range number 02, we assign the number in interval 3 lakhs to 3,99,999. Then this 02 will be assigned in the vendors for stores and spares. Then 03 will be assigned in the vendors for expenses. Like that, after creating the vendor account groups, we create and assign the number ranges to vendor account groups. For example, today, and one more thing is, the master records for the individual vendors are created under the respective groups. Suppose we are creating the master record for a vendor from whom we are purchasing raw materials, and his master record is to be created under this group. So at the time of creating the master record, you specify this group. Then the system will take number 1 lakh from this group, and that is given to master record. You are creating the master record for the second vendor from whom we are purchasing raw materials. Then the system will take the number from this group, 1 lakh 1, and that is given to master record. Right? Suppose you are creating the master record for your statutory auditors. That master record is to be created under vendors for expenses. Then you specify the vendors for expenses. See, XK01. Here it is asking for account group. If you are creating the master record for vendors for raw materials, you specify the vendors for raw materials group. If you are creating the master record for vendors for expenses, you specify the vendors for expenses group. Then the system will take the number from the next to the number ranges that is given to master record sequentially. In the case of GL accounting, right, we have selected the number manually, right? But in the case of accounts payable, from the group, the system takes the number sequentially, and that is given to master record. So Tapas is asking one question. Can we create raw material and stores vendor account group under local and foreign group as subgroup? No. There is no concept of main group and subgroup, right? You can create local vendors for raw materials, foreign vendors for raw materials, but not as a group and subgroup, right? Both are different account groups. Local vendors for raw materials, separate account group. The foreign vendors for raw materials, separate account group. There is no concept of main group and subgroup. Then, from the entry point of view, following are the functions of the vendor account groups. Number range for assigning account number to the vendor master record. Number 2, the field status for vendor master records created under the respective group. Just now explained, Here, at every vendor account group level, you select some fields as required entry. Some fields are suppressed entry. Then, when we create the master record for the vendors under the respective account groups, whatever the fields you have selected as suppressed entry at the account group level will not be displayed at all. And whatever the fields you have selected as required entry will become mandatory fields in the vendor master records. That's how the field status for vendor master records is controlled by vendor account groups. Then, whether the number assignment is external or internal, means for each vendor master record, right, user himself can enter the number manually while creating the master record. That is called external assignment. Otherwise, system itself will allot the number to the master record by itself, right, from the defined number range. That is called internal assignment. I gave you these notes also at the time of document type, right? There are 2 types of number assignment, internal and external. If the number to the document type is given by the system, that is called internal. If the number is given by the user, that is called external. Similarly, for the master records also, right, we maintain the numbers. Write down this point. Here some space is there, no, please write down. In SAP, we maintain the master records. We maintain the number ranges. We maintain the number ranges for 2 objects. We maintain the number ranges for 2 objects. Number one, document types. Number two, master records. Number two, master records. Next paragraph. For document types and master records, the number assignment can be internal or external. Now, the other things we will discuss in Monday class. See, next Saturday, Sunday, I will take the classes on Saturday and Sunday also, right? Actually, I want to take tomorrow and day after tomorrow also, but I'm suffering from heavy cold, right? That's why I don't want to take the class tomorrow and day after tomorrow, because we have missed 4 or 5 sessions, I think. So we have the sessions on next to Saturday and Sunday. Right? Saturday, Sunday, we take 2.5 hours. Then we can cover them. Any questions from anybody? Okay, then see you on Monday.